She is a writer who is never afraid to tackle some of the most difficult topics, and does so in a way that is both beautiful and unflinchingly realistic. In my time at SWAD, I have had the privilege to be in many critique classes with her, and it is hard to find anyone more passionate about not only their own work, but also everyone else's. She is both determined and talented, and pushes herself and others to be the best writers they can be. I am honored to introduce the fabulous Bisi Ademulegun.
Hello, everybody. All right, so before I begin, I would like to thank my peers for my final class of senior reading. I have valued your guidance. Every single one of you is a talented writer. Please continue on your journeys, especially my 3 young ladies here. I would like to also thank the amazing faculty of the creative writing department. James, for all his fiction, our fearless leader. Matt Donovan, Shakespeare, thank you. Julie Goldberg, I've never had a class with you, but I know you're bloody awesome. Anna Valente, thank you very much. The amazing Dana Levin, your poetry, everything about you is just amazing. And Michael Wilson, where are you? There he is. Thank you, sir. Thank you all for sharing with me your exceptional love for the art of the written word, your wisdom and your knowledge. I'm on a journey, one that I have worked so hard to be on, and my time here at SFWAD has been invaluable to that path that I am on. I have learned a lot, and sometimes it's been overwhelming for me, trying to put it all into practice. I'm still learning. Thanks to Dana and Marina, I now have a love of poetry. That said, I'll still never be a poet. Tonight is a simple continuation of my journey, and it's highlighted in my book, for sale on blurb.com. And I would like to give a personal shout out, though, to Hannah for the design of this, and this copy is for you. I shall begin. 3 short stories, and then you can all be free. All right, this first one is a non-fiction piece called In Order to Survive. Some of you may have heard it before, but oh well. Oh, and by the way, I usually invoke my grandmother, who's Nigerian, but for some reason tonight it's going to be Trinidadian accent, so. Stories are a vessel that can move us forward on our journey towards an enlightenment that we often do not know we need. Yoruba, a dialect spoken in southern Nigeria, in which each rhythmic syllable stirs both the speaker and the listener into a meditative sway. Yoruba is a passionate, romantic language, so different from the sometimes cold, unattached, and stoic British English that I speak. Yoruba, for me, is like an expansive tropical landscape. Symbols of the alphabet drip from deep green foliage like early morning dew. Letters yearn to be plucked to form a phrase, a sentence, a story. This language, spoken by my parents and my ancestors, drew me to write tales that herald my ventures against bullies at the all-girls school I attended in London as a child. My challenge with dyslexia, where I saw only letters as I wanted to see them, never stopped me from being astute or creative. I could press play on my tape recorder and narrate my own adventures through my soulful language into the microphone. When I was 7, my parents were eager to return to the land they knew and loved, Nigeria. England had not been the promised sidewalk paved with gold, but rather was drenched in lies and bigotry. As we waited to bound the flight to Lagos, I glowed with my pride at my newly acquired gift. My father had given me a typewriter. The instrument weighed about as much as I did, and was my new found and only friend, a vessel for storytelling. While my London bullies had not liked the colour of my skin or my indifference to being beaten by them on a regular basis, my Lagos bullies did not like my British accent. I alleviated my loneliness by continuing to plug letters and form words into sentences that I read on family nights. Family nights were a major bonus of living in Lagos. It was here I experienced narrative power from my grandmother and her love for telling stories. Three strangers sat around a campfire with a large cauldron of water was boiling. Each had agreed to drop their possessions into the cauldron in order to share a tasteful meal together. While stranger one had some homemade vegetable broth, stranger two, some locally grown vegetables, and stranger three, some freshly killed, free-range, organic gazelle. However, each one was so selfish, they only pretended to drop what they had into the boiling cauldron, and in silence, they ate their hot water. Through my grandmother's storytelling, I learned how stories can and do impact people. By the time I had turned 12, my now divorced mother returned my brother and I to London. At 18, she hightailed it back to Lagos, never to be seen again. Her departure was my start of a journey to be consumed by abandonment. I believe you meet people for a reason, and each one gives you a gift. Said gift may not seem obvious at the time, like my life with the 3 French girls who had invited me to live with them in Paris. However, the French woman had unwittingly given me the opportunity to start a new life. In other words, a lifeline out of depression. Clipped wings were outstretched, and I began to explore and write again. I wrote about love, loss, self-pity, rape, and forgiveness. I didn't know it then, but my stories were a part of my healing process. My stories were a vessel that carried me towards enlightenment that I didn't know I needed in order to survive. Righty. Still with me? All right, this next one's called Local Shooting. It's out of James's class. It's inspired by the All Lives Matter hashtag, which in reality, if all lives matter, then we wouldn't need Black Lives Matter. The fat recliner with its peeling faux leather envelops Jake White's bulk. His fingers grasp the local paper as his eyes scan for an interesting headline. The throwback 90s television sits muted across from him. Jake lifts one butt cheek and lets out an audible fart as he shakes his head at a headline that snaps his attention. He cries out to his wife, "Rita, what's taking you so long?" "Oh, hush up, Jake." Rita shuffles into the sulfur-drenched room with a tray that she places on her husband's lap. Jake looks down and frowns at his dinner. "Cheese on toast again?" Rita turns around and shuffles back out. "Nothing stopping you from taking your fat ass off that seat and getting your own dinner." Jake scoffs as he leans back against the recliner to extend the footrest. His wife returns with her own tray and a beer. She sits in the aging grey love seat next to Jake. "Where's my beer?" "Hypertension, remember?" "Doctors, they know nothing." He takes a bite out of his cheesy toast and lets out another fart. Rita pops open the beer, and Jake watches her neck as the ale travels down her esophagus. He wets his dry lips. She lets out a belch of hops and points to the paper. "Anything interesting?" "Police at it again. Local shooting, like the one last week, remember?" Rita nods as she gnaws on her toast. "This one's just a couple of blocks up the road." She drops the toast onto the plate. "It breaks my heart, Jake. They don't stand a chance. What's that fancy college word Ben used?" Rita eyes looks up towards the left corner of the trailer. "Demonized." She glances at Jake for affirmation. "Yeah, that's it. I hope they throw the book at that officer. I'm tired of them always getting away with it." "To be shot like that, it just ain't Christian." Rita's eyes meet Jake's. "People should, I don't know, do something." "After all these years, Rita, you surprise me." "How's that?" Her eyebrows rise into an arch. "Only a couple of weeks ago, Ben shows up with one of them. What was it you called him? A filthy, disgusting beast. Scared the shit out of me, Jake. That dark face of his." They both laugh. "You sure have softened since then." "Well, he was such a charmer. Not what like they say. That's when I realized that their lives matter too." Jake allows the paper to fall onto the thin linoleum. "None of them deserve to die like that," she continued. They both stare at the muted news presenter, whose demeanor was now jovial. They crunch down on their toast. Jake murmurs, "Pit bulls, they get such a bad rap." Rita nods as crumbs fall away from her open mouth. She picks up the remote and turns up the volume to the cheerful news presenter's voice. And to round off tonight's evening news, earlier today, an unarmed black man fleeing from the police was shot 8 times in the back. The officer said that he feared for his life. And now for the weather. Jake looks over to Rita. Isn't it almost time for Jeopardy? Rita looks up from the star-shaped clock and sits askewed on the trailer wall. Yep, it is. With the remote still in her hand, she points at the television and changes the channel. To wrap up 2016, it's all about me mum. This one's called Bargain Hunter. Okay. Mum and I sat in the front row of the lower half of the double-decker bus with its exposed rear exit. Weekend shoppers filled the bus on the 20-minute journey to Brixton's open-air market. In that short space of time, my mother had insulted every passenger that either boarded or disembarked in our native language of Yoruba. Look, you see? He resembles a monkfish. I laughed out loud, and my mother shrugged her shoulders at the passengers who stared at me, as if to say, I don't know what is wrong with this crazy laughing hyena next to me. Brixton is a town in South London, with a larger population of immigrants from the Caribbean islands, Nigeria, Ghana, India, and Ireland. There, my mother would shop for ingredients that went into making our dishes from back home, whilst I dragged the shopping trolley behind me, which my brother and I had nicknamed the Wally Trolley. One of the dishes, shaggy, was a dish the British called tripe. Tripe was something which I had turned my nose up at school, commented on how nasty it sounded, that anyone would actually want to eat a cow's stomach lining, only to find out later that it was one of my favourite dishes my mother made at home. In 1880, Electric Avenue became the first marketplace to receive electricity and was well known outside the area due to a popular reggae song by Eddie Grant. It was also the street that held the most market stalls. At night, Electric Avenue was a deserted place with its cobbled streets, but by day, especially on weekends, with all the stores open, the atmosphere was, dare I say it, electric. There was everything from fabrics to sewing machines, butchers, fishmongers, and fake designer handbags. Vegetable stalls, toy stalls, knick-knack stores crowded the small street, filled with the various shades of people in search of a bargain. I loved the multitude of accents, the shouts from the white vendors with their Cockney rhyming slang and missing teeth, who stood alongside the newcomers, Indian women in their traditional saris wrapped up in winter coats. London's jellied eels with green liquor and mashed potatoes battled for aromatic delights with the Jamaican patties and pieces of tandoori chicken on a stick. Everyone mingled together, forgetting that not all of London was that content or cosmopolitan, that outside raged a war of white Britain fighting to retain what it once was before the invaders arrived. Invaders from countries that white Britain had once invaded themselves. My mother was the hunter of bargains. Would move from stall to stall looking to expand our shopping trolley with fresh meat, peppers, gari, plantains, freshly sorted chickens, eggs, and of course vegetables from home. The lines would be long for the most popular vegetable stalls. The smart women knew who had the freshest, mouth-watering and eye-catching displays of colour. Mother handed over her money for the plantains. The white burly man handed her back change. What is this? £3.10, the man retorted, as he towered over my mother. I gave you £10. What are you trying to do, cheat me? You gave me £5, that's your change. Can you believe this man is trying to cheat me out of my mother, out of my money? My mum asked the other women behind her. Their voices are the voices of Indian, Jamaican, white, and others rose in a defensive chorus. Give her back her money, they shouted. Here, take your £5 and go. He pulled out a fiver from his blue apron and shoved it into my mother's open palm. She clasped it shut and in bold strides walked away with me in tow with a Wally trolley. A little further down, she stopped and looked at me, her face aglow with victory. Bisi, her tone was gentle and wise. If you don't try, you will never succeed. She slipped the extra illicitly gained £5 into her purse and continued on her hunt for bargains. Thank you.